2:07 in the morning, hot plate on low, and my noodles still had 5 minutes on the timer. I sat at the desk and watched the steam come off the water. Watched the steam, waited out. The office always smelled like dust cooking off old wiring and the WD-40 Randall kept under the sink for the gate hinge. Outside the glass, the sodium lamps buzzed that flat orange buzz they always did, laying long light down the gravel between the rows. 5 rows out there. A through E lit up fine. Row F sitting dark at the end, like somebody forgot to pay that part of the electric bill. Then the intercom gave its little crackle and the clicking came through, wet and even, rolling down from row F the way it had every night for 11 nights running. I reached over and bumped the hot plate timer up a notch, not because it needed it, just because the beep covers more of the sound that way. I kept my eyes on the water. 3 weeks ago, I didn't know row F existed. 3 weeks ago, I was standing in front of a corkboard in the financial aid office at Great Basin College, looking at a card somebody had hand-lettered and pinned up between a rideshare flyer and an ad for a roommate. Night attendant, storage facility, $28 an hour, midnight to 6. No experience necessary. I remember doing the math on that number twice because it seemed like a typo. My deferment had run out that spring, and rent on my room on Lamoille Highway was due Friday, and I had $214 in my checking account and a facilities management diploma that wasn't getting me calls back from anybody. $28 an hour was enough. It just needed to exist. Randall met me at the gate the next morning. Didn't sit me down, didn't ask me anything you'd call an interview question. Just walked me down the rows. A, B, C, D, E. Motion lights clicking on ahead of us like the place was glad to see us coming. And then, row F. Dark the whole way to the end, and he didn't slow down going past it. He handed me a laminated card. 4 rules on it. Don't open a unit yourself. Check anybody who shows up after 3 in the morning against the paper ledger before you raise the gate. Keep the log current. Leave the motion lights in row F alone. They'd been switched off on purpose. Row F lights are off for a reason, he said. Otherwise, it's straightforward. I noticed it, but didn't say anything. I signed where he put his finger. Behind the desk there was a binder on the wall labeled with the year, and beside it 9 or 10 more going back further than that, every one labeled the same plain way. Rent was due Friday. First 3 nights, nothing. No customers, no marks in the log that didn't belong there, no sound out of row F at all. I ate noodles and watched the monitors. Camera 6 sat on row F the whole time and showed exactly what row F was. A dark mouth at the end of a lit lot, doing nothing. 4th night, the printer went off on its own. 2:47 in the morning. No input from me, no customer at the gate, gate switch locked, lot empty on every screen. And it printed one line. Unit F9, accessed 2:47 a.m. I sat there and read it twice, and then it went again. F14, 2:49. F2, 2:51. F9 again, 2:53. I got the flashlight out of the drawer and walked the gravel between E and F. Rows A through E lit up as I passed, same as always. F stayed dark. My beam found F2 shut, F14 shut, and F9 with its door standing open. I stepped 1 pace in. It wasn't a 10 by 10 room, it was a corridor, metal shelving both sides, running back a good 60 feet, which didn't make sense because the back wall of that building sat maybe 30 feet behind the row F doors, and every shelf was stacked with buff-colored banker's boxes. I read the closest label. It was my handwriting, dated November 14th, 3 weeks out from where I was standing. I read 3 more: November 19th, November 27th, December 3rd. All mine, all ahead of me. I didn't touch a single box. Then the clicking started up from the dark end of the corridor, closer than it had ever sounded on the intercom, and something came out of that dark, doing routine work, stooped over, moving like a man filing paperwork. Its face wasn't a face. It was flaps, cardboard flaps, opening and shutting, slow and wet. It didn't look at me. It pulled a box off a shelf, wrote something on the label with a black marker, slid it back, and moved on to the next one, working away from me down the row. I backed out 1 step at a time, flashlight on it the whole way, until my heels cleared the concrete lip of the doorway. The second they did, the roll door came down by itself and hit the ground like a gunshot going off in that dark, empty row. I walked back to the office and sat at the desk and didn't move again for 3 hours. I told myself I wasn't coming back. I came back the next night because I still had $214 and rent was still due Friday. That's 11 nights ago now. The timer on the hot plate beeps, and I turn it down, and the clicking's still going out there behind the glass, and I keep my eyes on the noodles, and I do not look at camera 6. 11 nights. I keep saying it like it means something specific, like a number that big should already have a shape to it, but it's just a count I've been keeping since the night in F9. 14 shifts, 14 box labels, 1 legal pad filled front and back with timestamps I copied off a printer that types by itself. Row F never gave me the same room twice after that first time. 5th night, it was a boiler room. Pipes, a gauge, 1 bulb on a cord, nobody home. 6th night, it was some kind of office, a metal desk and a wall of binders that looked exactly like the ones on the wall behind me, except older, and it smelled like a library nobody had opened in years. 7th night, it was this lot. Same gravel, same rows, except lit up flat and white like noon instead of 2 in the morning. And there was a woman behind the office glass in a shirt I didn't recognize, and she turned and looked right at me and said something I couldn't hear. I didn't go in on any of those nights. I stood at the door and I looked, and then I stepped back and let it close. I found the staff binder on the wall a few nights after that, the one labeled staff in marker that's mostly worn off. 11 names going back 4 years. Every one of them has a start date and an end date, and then the word transferred. No forwarding address, no number to call. The last name before mine is Rachel Wilkins. End date 8 months back. Transferred. Same as all the rest. Somewhere around the end of the 2nd week, I stopped going home. Told myself it was because the drive wasn't worth it for 3 hours of sleep. And that's true as far as it goes. But the real reason is I started photographing the labels. Standing right at the F9 threshold, not stepping in, camera zoomed all the way, getting the dates off the boxes without touching anything. 8th night, the dates on the labels were further out than the 4th nights had been. They keep moving forward. I don't know a better way to say that. By last night, I hadn't slept a whole night in 6 days, and the legal pad was full, both sides, and I slept in the office chair the way you sleep in a chair, in pieces, and ate whatever the vending machine in the hallway had left in it. Randall met me at the gate the next morning. He gets in at 7:15 most days, drives an old Silverado that needs a muffler, and I heard it coming down Route 11 before I saw it. I had the legal pad in one hand and my phone in the other, photos already pulled up, and I didn't wait for him to park all the way before I walked over. Look at this. He looked at me first, not the pad. Just looked at me the way you'd look at somebody who hadn't slept, which I hadn't. And then he took the phone out of my hand and started going through the pictures. He didn't say anything for a long time. He went through every one of them, slow, the tape on his palm catching the morning light while he scrolled. 14 nights, he said. Not a question. Yeah. He handed the phone back. I was a night attendant here, 7 years ago. He said it flat, like he was reading a form. I stayed too long. What's row F? The intake. He said it like he was talking about the gate switch or the ledger, just another piece of equipment. It's not storage. It doesn't hold things. It holds people. The ones who sit at that desk too long. I asked him what that meant, cataloging, and he told me the boxes with my handwriting on them aren't mine. Not really. He said the intake writes them. Said it's putting me together one night at a time, piece by piece. Every shift I sit at that desk, it gets a little more of me down on a label in a box I never touched. How'd you get out? I asked. I found someone before my final box got filed. He didn't blink. That's how it works. And then what? Daytime shift's the cost of it. It needs somebody at the desk, somebody managing it. I've done that 7 years. So tell me how, I said. Tell me what you did, step by step. I don't care how it sounds. I just need... You've been cataloged 14 nights, he said over me, same even voice. You're running out of time. Then help me. He didn't answer. He looked at the pad in my hand once more, and I thought for a second he was going to reach for it, take it the way he'd taken the phone, but he didn't. He said one more thing. The intake needs a clerk at the desk every night. It can't close a ledger without a signature. No apology in it, nothing that sounded like sorry, just the fact laid down like a fact and nothing after it. He walked past me into the office. I stood there in the gravel with the pad still in my hand, watching him through the glass, and he sat down at the desk like none of it had happened, opened the daytime log to the day's page, and picked up the pen. He doesn't look up. Randall stayed at the desk the rest of Wednesday and didn't say another word to me. I sat in the back room on a milk crate and watched him through the doorway, filing the daytime log like the conversation in the gravel had already been shredded and dated and put away somewhere. At midnight, I took the desk back. 15th shift. I brought the legal pad and set it square in front of me the way you'd set a form down before you sign it. And I waited. The printer stayed quiet. The intercom stayed quiet. I watched the clock and told myself that was good, that quiet was the baseline. What $28 an hour was supposed to sound like. 1:30 came, and the roll door on F9 went up by itself, same as it always does. Except the light behind it wasn't the flat sodium orange of the lot or the dead dark of row F on a normal night. It was white. Fluorescent white, the kind that hums a little, laid out across the gravel in a rectangle like somebody had cut a window into noon and set it down in the middle of my 2 a.m. I picked up the flashlight out of habit and didn't turn it on. I'd seen this once before, on the 7th night. The same lot lit up wrong, a woman behind the glass mouthing something I couldn't hear. I hadn't gone in that time. I told myself 6 days ago that stepping into any of it was the one thing I wasn't going to do. Randall said 11 nights had already been cataloged, and I hadn't asked him to do the math for me because I'd already done it. Whatever came next, 6 days from tonight, was the day my name got filed the rest of the way. I walked out across the gravel toward F9 anyway. The light didn't waver going in. Same lot on the other side, same rows, same gravel, but warm and quiet in a way the real lot never is. No buzz, no hinge creak, no clicking from anywhere. A woman was standing by the office door on the far side. She turned when my shoes hit the gravel like she'd been waiting on the sound of them. "You're the new one," she said. "Brody?" "Brody." I didn't offer more than that. I already had her name, Wilkins, Rachel Wilkins, the last line in the staff binder before mine. End date, 8 months back. Transferred, same word as every name above hers. "You're Rachel." She didn't ask how I knew. 8 months, she said. "That's how long I've been in here." "That's how long I've been in here." Her face was fine, ordinary, tired, the kind of tired that's stopped being news to the person wearing it. It was her arms that stopped me, wrapped wrist to elbow in wide brown packing tape, the industrial kind, wound tight enough that it had started to fray at the edges. Where it had peeled, I could see what was underneath wasn't skin. It was cardboard. Buff-colored, ridged, layered with a stripe of red running along the inside of her wrist that I recognized because it's the exact stripe on every banker's box stacked on every shelf back in F9. "It starts at the extremities," she said. "Fingers first, then the hands, then it works up the forearms." Fingers first, then the hands, then it works up the forearms. She said it like she was reading it off a form, same as everything else. I didn't find someone in time. So here I am, already shelved. "Shelved?" I said. "I can't go back out the row F door anymore. Not the way you can." She held her arm up. "You want proof it's not a costume?" "You want proof it's not a costume?" She peeled the tape back an inch on her left forearm before I could tell her she didn't have to, and she took a lighter out of her shirt pocket, and she held the flame up under the exposed edge of the cardboard. It caught for half a second, a curl of smoke, and her whole face went tight, and she snapped her arm back and pressed the tape down over it fast, like you'd pull your hand off a stove. "It hurts," she said. "It's still me. That's what it does." "It's still me. That's what it does." I didn't say anything to that because there wasn't anything to say that wouldn't have sounded stupid coming out of my mouth. She reached inside the office door and came back with 2 pieces of paper and held them out. The first was a shipping manifest, Meridian letterhead across the top, my name typed clean under it, my start date, and a column that said completion date with a date on it. 6 days out from tonight. I read it twice. 22 days, Rachel said, before it files your final box and puts you on a shelf next to me. Before it files your final box and puts you on a shelf next to me. The second paper was a copy of the laminated card, the same one I'd signed my first morning with Randall's finger pointing at the line. I'd skimmed it then, 4 rules and a signature, and I'd been thinking about $28, not the fine print underneath the rules. It was there, in small type at the bottom. Attendant authorizes designation of successor at sole discretion of signing party. That's the way out, Rachel said. Get somebody else to sign that card. Get them sitting the desk before your date comes due. The intake starts on them instead. It lets go of you. Get somebody else to sign that card. Get them sitting the desk before your date comes due. The intake starts on them instead. It lets go of you. She said it the way she'd said everything else. No weight on it, no apology riding underneath. That's how it works. That's how every one of you gets out. That's how Randall got out. He found somebody, I said. Not a question, I already knew the shape of it. I just hadn't heard anybody say the whole sentence out loud until now. "He found you," Rachel said. I stood there in that warm, fake noon with the manifest in my hand and didn't say anything else, and she didn't offer anything else. And after a while, I turned around and walked back the way I'd come, through the rectangle of white light and out into the dark mouth of row F, and the roll door came down behind me hard enough that I felt it in my teeth. I walked back to the office. 3 hours left on the shift, and I didn't log a single thing in that time. No timestamp, no note, nothing for the binder. I sat at the desk with the legal pad closed under my hand and the manifest in the other. And after a while, I set it down flat, face against the desk, so the date wasn't looking up at me anymore. I didn't turn it back over. I didn't need to read it again to know what it said. I didn't turn the manifest back over. I just sat there with it face down on the desk for the rest of the shift. And when 6 o'clock came, I clocked out and drove home and slept until noon, which I hadn't done in 3 weeks. Thursday morning, I made a job listing on my phone. Same wording as the card that got me into this. Night attendant, storage facility, $28 an hour, midnight to 6, no experience necessary. I drove to Great Basin College and pinned it to the same corkboard in financial aid, right where I'd found Randall's, and I put my own number on it instead of his. 2 calls came in over the next 2 days, and I talked myself out of both of them. One guy asked about benefits, and I told him there weren't any, and he said he'd have to think about it. The other one asked whether the shift ever rotated, and I said no, midnight to 6 every night. And she said that didn't work with her kids' daycare. I answered both of them honest. The third call was a kid with a 775 number who didn't ask about benefits or daycare or anything else. "Is the job still open?" "It's open." "When can I start?" I told him to come by that afternoon. His name was Russell, 20 years old, dropped out of a semester at Western Nevada College, drove up to Elko because a cousin told him there was work here. Owed 2 months back rent on a room on Idaho Street. $28 in his account. He told me that part himself, unprompted. I walked him through the rows the way Randall walked me. A, B, C, D, E, the motion lights clicking on ahead of us the whole way down. And then row F, dark at the end. And I didn't slow down going past it any more than Randall had. "Lights in row F are disconnected on purpose," I said. "Don't fix them. Don't fix them." He looked down the row for about a second and a half. "Okay," he said. I didn't tell him about the printer, or the boxes, or Rachel, or the date on my manifest. I handed him the laminated card the same way it got handed to me, and he read it standing right there in the gravel, and he signed the attendant agreement on the desk at 11:48 that night. The second his pen left the paper, the printer went off. Not one line, a whole burst, longer than I'd ever heard it run. I pulled the paper out and read it standing up. Unit F9, accessed 11:49 p.m., Colby Rourke. Then F14, then F2. Different handwriting on every line. The fluorescence overhead strobed twice and held. The intercom picked up the clicking, and it was louder than I'd ever heard it, rolling forward instead of just sitting back there in the dark the way it always had. Russell looked at the speaker on the wall. "What is that?" he said. "Motion sensor relay cycling," I said. "It does that sometimes." "It does that sometimes." Out past the glass, F9's roll door came up on its own, and the light behind it wasn't dark. It was that same flat fluorescent white I'd stood in with Rachel, laid out across the gravel in a wide, clean rectangle, and it looked warm from where I was standing. I started toward it. My mother's name went gray in my head. Juniper. I knew that word. I'd known it my whole life. And then it came back. And then it started going again. $28 surfaced and blurred at the edges like a number underwater. I could smell the WD-40 under the sink, and I couldn't smell it. I understood the substitution had already gone through, and it didn't matter. It had 11 nights of me filed and cataloged, and it wasn't going to let a completed file walk off. The door was open because the door was owed. I turned my back on it. I put my eyes on Russell instead. The stubble coming in patchy on his jaw, the torn collar on that jacket he'd worn to the interview like it was the only one he had. He was frowning down at the printer tape in his hand, turning it over, trying to find the normal enough box to file it in. I held on to that. I bit down on the inside of my cheek until I tasted copper, and the pain was mine. I said his name in my head, Russell Mendoza. And then the other fact, the one I couldn't unsay, what I'd just done to him. I held both of those in front of me. Juniper went gray again, and this time, she didn't come back. I didn't move toward the door anyway. I watched the clock on the wall. 5 minutes, near enough. The light in F9 dimmed down to nothing. The clicking pulled back down the row the way water pulls back off a beach. The roll door came down. The printer went quiet. The fluorescence steadied out overhead like nothing had happened. I walked out the gate at 12:06 and didn't tell Russell where I was going. Drove the Civic out onto Route 11 with the dashboard still cracked the way it's been cracked since I bought it, and I didn't turn toward the house on the Moyle Highway. I drove to the Pilot at the interstate interchange and sat in the lot until it got light, radio off, hands on the wheel, not really thinking about anything on purpose. At 7:30, I went back. Randall was in the office. He looked at me, and then he looked at the staff binder on the wall, and there was a new line under mine now. A name I didn't know, start date, status, active. And I understood whose handwriting had been on that printer tape. Randall handed me the office keys and the gate keys without being asked. "The daytime manager position is yours now," he said. "I'm done." He left at 7:45, and he hasn't come back. That was 3 weeks ago. I know the binder system now, the rental contracts, the gate codes, which line on the phone script gets people off the line fastest when they ask about rates. I keep the ad up at the college, same wording, and I update the number every time somebody new signs on so the calls come to whoever's running the desk. Russell's on his 3rd night now. This morning I found him at the desk with a strip of packing tape wound around his right palm, the same kind Randall had wrapped around his the morning I first met him. "My hand's been bothering me," he said. "You got a first aid kit?" "You got a first aid kit?" I showed him the one under the desk and didn't look at the hand directly. Every morning since I've come in and unlocked the gate, and every morning I stop for a second before I walk the rows, and I look down to the far end where row F sits with its lights still off, disconnected on purpose, same as it's always been. I stand there in the gravel a minute, thinking about whether it counts a manager as inventory too.